start with sound, because I love the sound of these bowls. Have you all met my heart bowl? Much smaller than the one in the sanctuary, but it practically wallows. I would invite you to settle in and just receive this. And when it's complete, we'll do a spiritual ritual. Ready? Here we go. And with the resonance of the heart bowl, we begin our work. We come together to explore the possibilities of our lives on a mystical, a metaphysical, an other kind of way of being in the world. And in this other way of being, we awaken to that inner presence that is always present, that inner knowing that is always knowing, that inner being that is the divine. There is only one power and one presence. It's right here, it's right now. As much here and now as anywhere in all of creation. So we come together to accept that presence as our very essence, to embrace it and embody that knowing, which is already so. And with that, we create our lives anew. We move into something greater, more wonderful than we have known before. And I'm so grateful to be in this place of knowing, to have this camaraderie of spirit with itself, as each of us together, bringing the best of ourselves forward into this new knowing. And I accept this journey as sacred, as holy, as perfect in every way. And I celebrate it with my heart wide open. And knowing that this is so, this that I say, this that I know, this that I see, and this that I speak, I simply let it be all that it is. And so it is. Thank you for being here. It's been a while since I've... That's not working.
Beat. Probably with your treatment, so.
Maybe it doesn't have a battery. You're recording audio, though.
Yes.
So we're good, we're good. We can leave that to be what it is. There we go. So again, thank you for being here. It's been a while since I've taught a class at Center for Spiritual Living Asheville, but you are exactly the people that I wanted to do this with. So thank you for showing up tonight. What I would like to begin with is, well, let me do some housekeeping here real quick. Let's see. I'll give you your assignment at the end. No, let's just do it now. Here's what I want you to do. This is the book for this class. It's called 5 Steps to Freedom by me. If you don't have this class, we are prepared, Breezy is prepared to sell you one tonight. And we're going to go through this incrementally to look at the different steps of treatment, but we'll get to all of that. What I would ask you to do by next week is to reread, because I know a number of you have already read this, to read through the first step. Okay, and on page 23 in most of the books that you have, there's a little workspace. You can write in the book if you're into writing in books, and if something about that bothers you, just write it on a piece of paper, but there's an exercise to do. Homework? Homework. Wow, what a concept. Yeah, so not intense homework, but it's worth doing because it brings home the point of what each of these steps is about, so that you've got a greater sense within yourself. So please don't skip over the preface or the foreword or any of those things. They all have value in the process of what we're doing. So that's great. Please prepare to bring some paper and pen to the class so that you can keep notes for yourself. There will not be any testing here, but there will certainly be an opportunity for you to reflect on the things that we're going to talk about. Let's see, housekeeping. Bathrooms are there if anyone doesn't know. We're going to take a break at about 8 o'clock, so if you can hold off and not get up in the middle class, great, but I have no control over your bladders. So if you need to get up, just go over there and go. We'll take that little break and we'll come back and complete our class for the night right around 9. I have made no provisions for food in this class. If anybody wants to get involved in that, that's great. We are going to set up coffee service for everybody and hot water if you want tea, so help yourself to that. And if food shows up, we'll just say thank you. And I would hope that before we leave any Wednesday night, that we have the opportunity to make sure the place is in good order before we leave. I want to introduce my teaching partner in this class, something I haven't done for a while, Dr. Kate Grayson. Kate is a real professor. And here's how this is going to work. This is a 7-class program. We're going to meet 7 times. And I don't say 7 weeks because any class that has 7 meetings means it's 6 weeks and 1 day. But that's what we're going to do, and here's how it's going to work. We're going to progressively bring Kate into doing some of the conversation leading in this class, but she will definitely be in charge the last 3 weeks of this class because I'll be gone. But we're working out the details of that, so progressively we'll, maybe not tonight with Kate, but we'll certainly have her involved more and more in this as we go, and she's an excellent teacher and a wonderful facilitator, so thank you so much for pressing me to do this. You did really good. Yes, Breezy?
Turn up the lights on you a little bit because you kind of...
I'm kind of, yeah, I'm less than, kind of.
It's hard to see you.
Oh, there we go.
Where'd y'all go? Okay, so let's do introductions. And to do that, what I want to do is invite everybody at the tables to gather together. Okay? Somebody write this down at table 1, table 2, table 3, and table 4. This is what we're going to do. We're going to ask you to share your names with people at your table. I want you to talk about how long you've been coming to the center. I want you to mention what classes you've taken here, with who. And I want you to share something important that's happening in your life right now. So you guys get together. Breezy, you might be the easiest one to move to make that a collection of people. There we go. This is figuring out well. You guys in the back here probably want to come forward and sit in a little bit of a gathering here, and you guys over there, and just do it. So I will write that on the board so that you can keep looking this way and say, what was I supposed to say? The easy name. No, you don't have to keep track of this.
So we're not taking notes on this part.
Just a guide. Pretty much everything.
Sure, that's great. It's a basket out there.
Oh, that was, yeah, yes, it was.
Breezy, side clears, all the classes.
Oh, yeah, the history's applied.
Have a show this weekend.
Somebody that takes.
That's it.
That's not right.
Before my time.
There
you go.
So, who wants to start?
I'll start. I'm Judith.
Hi, Judith.
Hi, I've been here, well, I was just sitting, funny, I was sitting back there thinking, I've been 2 years coming up this August. And I've pretty much taken every class in the last 2 years. Popped up with Barbara and John and Kate, actually. And I do all the videotaping, just kind of morphed into that.
What's important going on?
I'm just realizing my grades good. So the process growth.
This is the second time I've taken it.
Before it was here.
I give it to
So it's just, and what's going on now is I'm
like-minded.
trying to let go of someone in my family who loves. It's very abusive.
They started it 2 years ago. I was
I'm
not
trying
in the
to
original starting, but I
be okay with the way she
My name's
is.
Honey Wonder, and I've been coming here about the same
And
time.
taking her away.
And classes that I've taken are the Master Key System. I caught the end of that, and
Thank you.
I guess basically half of I missed last week with this thing called use. And I'm working on just like getting myself in order, self-development. And I came here originally, I think about maybe it's and then came back again like a few months before I started coming back steadily. So I just kind of like dipped my toe. And it was pretty random how I got here the first time and the second time. And then I was stuck after that. Yeah, really enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Katie, and I haven't been coming to this center. I actually go to a center in North Carolina, and but I have taken some classes here. I took the prosperity class, and I took another class like in 2008, and I can't remember what it was. But I've taken a whole bunch of classes at my center. Something important is that my mother's had some really major health difficulties, and she's moving through that. In the process of moving her towards the mountains. She lives in eastern North Carolina. If you haven't been there, it's Austin. She lives in Pitt County.
Lots and lots and lots and lots of good stuff.
So that's really
I started a business right now.
It's close to the coast. As the bird flies, it's like 50 miles, but you gotta go by roads, and it's like 75.
Your clients are.
Well, I'm curious.
Clients are
All ages,
So it's the coast.
mostly women at this point. But yeah. No, did that for a while, not doing it again.
I understand, I know, I guess. And I think I've been here for a year and a half.
At the prosperity.
Has it been longer than that? I don't know. And let me think, what else have I done? I haven't taken all these classes. What's going on with my remodeling?
It looks like we look,
And, yeah, I'm sure.
just to be there and you know.
I'm curious as to
And I'm also working for this lady here who doesn't like
like
her,
unity.
but
Work here.
I am going to help with this.
Well, I've been getting my other job
Gardening.
Oh,
pretty regularly.
I don't know what that means.
Well,
yeah, not really.
I know where it is. I'm working.
My name's Amanda.
It's just
My
me.
birthday will be 1 year.
Non-denominational.
Come once
Yeah,
before that.
so
There's
the
a gap.
Right. And they taught from the
Done all the
Bible.
classes since then. We couldn't name them all.
What kind of work do you
But
do?
I clicked my calendar.
Construction and landscaping?
Notes.
Yeah,
Just got it used prior, so I can check it out. Missed to deal with
And
some.
I'm trying to make suggestions. I have done a lot of that in my house.
Yep, and my friend that was just here visiting is.
Experiment with things around the finish line.
Feels like.
How did you wind up being here? Was
I'm a jack of all trades.
Well, I was That's one of my replaced the cross.
Hang on, let me check. July 12th will be 1 year.
You gotta be impeccable around here. Remember, that's one of the rules.
I've been taking all every so more something that's probably worth.
So what is your book about?
And,
Well, you can always visit.
Oh, yeah, it's
yeah, I can tell. I read it every one.
miles away or anything.
Okay, something important.
But I enjoy it.
Anyway,
Life.
Yeah, tell me about that.
varied skill levels on doing all kinds of
Great.
stuff.
See what else is-
Working on e-bikes.
What's going on in your life?
Electric mountain bike.
Honey Bunder.
To ride out the important to ride out the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, that's
but
my
it's an
first
e-bike.
name. Full name,
I'm working
Honey
on
Bunder,
doing
sings
like
and calls.
exhibits for,
Yeah, that's good. I'm
So
sure.
right here, so I do better if I can see it.
That's a lowercase.
That's not true.
Working on the parking lot.
So it's kind of like Spanish, sort of that it's these are involved. And that actually sounds like.
spiritual journey.
I've got a card in my car.
Well, that's true.
Morning.
Thank you, I do better when
We're almost done.
put the sounds and the letters.
Yeah, I know. But, and you said your name's
Katie.
KD.
Pushing the
Oh,
envelope. I just wanted
Yeah, I'm not being
money
lazy,
or I want
not
money.
counting the T. There is no T.
Which is
Okay, one more minute.
not the point of everything, it's just be in the zone, the resident.
Are you guys complete?
One more.
One more, got it.
Be there and all that stuff comes to me. So that's
Yeah, it's supposed to be the Welsh name for Catherine. My given name is Catherine. But I've only met one Welsh name.
Okay, let's wrap it up. Thank you.
Came here in 2010.
Well done, everybody. Who learned something through that process? Anybody learn anything? This group learned a lot. This group, did you guys learn anything? Great, great. Anything interesting, so compelling you have to tell everybody? All right, nobody's ready to tell everybody. That's all right. So here's my...
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Bruce.
Vivian's writing a book.
Yay, Vivian! Joe,
Just a lot of like-mindedness,
and that's where I want to go.
evolving, increase, just exciting.
So you think on balance that you have more in common or more different about the people you just shared with? More in common, right. We're all on this path of experiencing the human condition on planet Earth. We're not that different. I mean, we think we look different, but it's not really about our looks, it's about this pathway, this learning, this thing that we're doing. We have way more in common than we don't. So, yay, isn't that wonderful? So that's where we begin this process from, to realize that we're all on this journey, and we're all seeking things that are much the same. I have long taught that there are 4 general areas of the human experience, and that everybody has those areas. We get good at some of them, you know, are our Achilles heel that we have to keep going back and working on, but they're all 4 there, and we all find our way with them. They are our health, our human bodily health, our mental health as well, any kind of health. They are our relationship with flow, with money. I call that wealth. They are relationships with ourselves and others. And they are how we express into the world. Those 4 things cover everything. I've never had anybody tell me there's something else to do. Those are the 4 areas of a human experience.
Can you describe that last one, what that means?
How you express into life, your job, your avocation, your interests, whatever it is that you put energy into. Yeah. So that being so, we come together to do this class. Why? Because we want more. We want a fuller, richer experience of life, and the idea of doing this seems, at least on the surface, to offer us that opportunity. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at the idea of where we would prefer to have our lives be. Is anyone here ready to say that their life is just at a point of total destruction? No, of course not. We're all competent, capable people living our lives well. We've chosen a beautiful place to live up in these mountains, and we have a lot, as we've already said, a lot in common as we are upon this journey. So we come together with this idea of commonality. And what I would suggest to you is this idea of being in common really has to do with this idea of mind. This teaching is called Science of Mind. It's the study of the workings of mind, but not psychologically. It's bigger than that. It's the idea of how this thing called mind actually works. And we're going to look at that at several levels. But looking at it at its greatest essence, its fullest essence, Emerson said that there is one mind common to all. So it's not that I have a mind and you have a mind, but there is this subjective mind that is everywhere and always. And we're going to learn how to apply our understanding of that to get the results that we desire. One thing I want to make perfectly clear, this class is not about fixing anything, because you're not broken. None of you are broken. No matter what's going on in your life, none of you are broken. You are all living in the perfection of spirit. When I say perfection, I'm not talking about meeting expectations, which is what most human beings think perfection is, that if everything I want happens, then life is perfect. Well, actually, everything in your consciousness is directing the mind of God to create in your life those things that are happening right now. And it's working perfectly. So you've already got a perfect life. So don't treat for perfection. You're already there. But treatment is not about fixing anything. It never was. That's not what we do. We're not fixers. We are knowers of the truth. And then we're going to see how we apply that and make that work in our lives. Ernest Holmes is the one that came up with this idea of spiritual mind treatment, using that term to describe what we do. It isn't particularly original. In fact, Holmes was a synthesizer. He wasn't an originator. So he took ideas from all over and brought them together and created this philosophy that we call Science of Mind. But it's not a lot of original thought. I mean, he was at one time a Christian Science practitioner. So he did treatment work as a Christian Scientist. And was also involved in an organization called Divine Science, which did a form of affirmative prayer. So he had a lot of other things to look at as he developed his way. And his way seems to work because there are lots of us that do this effectively now. So that's the track we're on for the next 6 weeks and 1 day. So to create context for this, I want to start with the idea that there are only 2 things in mind that you can do, or I can do, or anyone can do. Anyone want to take a guess at what they are?
Create.
What's the other one?
Change my thoughts.
Change your thoughts. No. I mean, not that you're wrong. Those you can do, but they're the two ideas that I want to say everything falls into are we express into life, create. Although Holmes would say we don't create, and I'll explain that later. But we express into life, and then we experience life. We experience things in life. Everything is either an expression or an experience. That's it. That's all we can do. But the beauty of that is that when we express into life, life reflects back to us in our experience. And if we move from living in a world of random thoughts into a place where we choose our thoughts consciously and we do the deep work that we're going to talk about here, then the reflection that comes back to us changes according to the way we change, in the way we see and act in our world. Spiritual mind treatment is not about words. We use a lot of words to do it. That's a tool that we have, this verbal communication thing. But it's really not about the words. Some of those powerful treatments I've ever experienced didn't have a single word. But they had an essence to them that carried forth in that reflective action of life and came perfectly to me. So we're going to use words to do this because that's our tool, but it's not limited to words. So don't think as this class moves on and we start doing things where you're actually expressing into this class ideas around treatment, don't think that your words are that important. They're not. I mean, eloquence is lovely, but it's not the truth of this work. This work is much deeper than that. One of the best treatment practitioners I've ever seen was a 12-year-old boy. Boy, he could create money. It was quite amazing. He could just and he would like go to school and treat his friends, and they would all get money. And he was just amazing. And then he hit puberty, and his interests changed. But I think he's probably circled back to money by now, because he's in his 20s. But this idea of expression and experience, it creates two things. One is that when we express into life, we're directing life. We're having an impact on life because we're putting something out. When we're experiencing, we're being reflective. We're experiencing those things that are coming to us. So we're going to talk about how important it is in the expression of life to create the thing that we desire in the reflectiveness of life, what comes to us. That's the work that we're talking about. So we must become much more conscious of our words, our thoughts, the images that cross our minds, and realize that that has great power to influence our lives in every way that we act. Let's see. Let's look at prayer. I have a wonderful book here. Everybody heard of Greg Braden? Braden is by his training an engineer. He lives out in Taos, New Mexico. I had the great pleasure of having him buy me lunch one day in Taos. But he writes some interesting books, and this one is my favorite. It's called The Secret of the Lost Mode of Prayer. And in it, he makes some very clear ideas about how prayer works, and about, he traveled all over the world. He studied ancient cultures and all kinds of societies across the planet in every language imaginable. He went to Tibet, he went to South America, he went to Africa, and he found that there are basically 4 common modes of prayer, 4 ways that people move into a state of expression through prayer. Now, just to define prayer, I have defined prayer in 5 Steps to Freedom as everything that you think, everything that you say, and everything that you do. Because those are the expressions of life. I align the idea of prayer with expression. It's like the same thing. But the idea of prayer in most cultures is something much more refined than that. It says we stop, we center ourselves, and we express in a way, most people thinking you're expressing to an outside deity, but the truth is that what you're doing is simply centering yourself so that you know what you're saying and thinking. You know consciously what you're doing, because most of the thoughts that you have through the day go unnoticed by you. They're just random little flitterings of things. What am I going to have for lunch? What time is it? Where are we going after work? All those are just flittering thoughts that are flying through, thousands of them across your mind all day long. It's not that those don't have an impact, they do, but it's the underlying consciousness of your beliefs that are really driving who you are. And you have set that up through the experiences of your life, and they are driving you. And the only way to change that is to get very conscious about who you are and what you're bringing forth in your life. And that's what we want to do with prayer. So the 4 things that Braden talks about in this little book called Secrets of the Lost Mode of Prayer are, 1, that people bargain with their prayers, believing that there's an outside deity that has some control over them. They make a deal. Oh God, if you will please do whatever it is that I want you to do, I promise that I will never again, blah, blah, blah. You've heard of these kinds of prayers if you haven't done them, but most of us at some time in our lives are so desperate we're willing to work a deal with something we really don't understand. And we think somehow that we're going to get the result that we want. We're kind of, hoping that we do anyway. So that's a very common way that people deal with prayer, is that they bargain with an outside deity. The second way is a petitioning prayer, and that's simply to ask. Just ask. Ask God to give you whatever it is. Oh, dear Lord, please give me that new Mercedes. I really want this new Mercedes. Please, please, please bring that into my life. Now, that's very shallow. But it could be, please take this, this burden off of me. Please heal my relationship. Well, but you're asking still some outside force, disconnected from you, that has some power over your life to create a change of condition. It's very iffy. You know? It's very iffy. Now, does that mean that no prayers that are prayed that way are manifest? No, of course they are. Because some people believe if they wear the right color or pray to through the right saint or do it a certain way, that they'll get the result. And it's actually the belief in that that is the essence of what creates it. It's believing that the outcome they desire will work because they have favor with this deity, because somehow things always work out. There's a wonderful woman that has passed in the last couple of years who was Catholic and always believed if she prayed to a certain saint, and she lit that candle and she did it a certain way that she would always get that. And I think she did. Maybe until she didn't, but she did. So she was completely convinced that that was real and that that was all there was, that you do it that way and you get what you want. Bless her heart, good for her. I mean, that's very reassuring in the moment. But I haven't found that to be true. I prayed those desperate prayers, wanting something to happen or not happen, and it didn't turn out that way. And I just reject the idea that there's a deity out there that's going, no. I just don't believe that's so. Well, what good would that be? Why would that be the way it's organized? So I don't believe that it is. That's, so we've got bargaining and petitioning. The third way is ritual prayer. Any ritual? Ritual. Anybody here grew up Catholic? Okay, I've got a few Catholics. So you know the ritual prayers. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord be with you. And on we go. What's the other big one?
Our Father.
Our Father, yes. And you do those as penance, and they're rituals. That you say the same words over and over. We actually do ritual prayers here. We do it every Sunday. We repeat certain prayers that are the same words every time we say them. So I don't want to tell you that there's not something in there, but again, it's not praying to an outside deity that's making that work. It's actually working because you're working it, because you're working it in your consciousness over and over again. So there's something to that. So if you say the same lines, the same ideas over and over and over again, they get into your consciousness. So it's not a bad thing at all.
Would affirmations fall?
Affirmations are exactly that. And you know, this whole idea of an outside deity, how do you know that God hears your prayers? Well, if you follow this line of thinking and this line of teaching that we have, we know that God hears your prayers because you hear your prayers. Because as you think them or speak them, you're aware of them. Therefore, God's aware of them. How could if God is an absolute, then all that you say and know is known by that presence because it's at the point of view. And we'll get deeper into that on our work in step 2. Right now, what's important to know is that these kinds of prayers have their advantage to a point. They do provide it something if they're working on your mind. The fourth kind is a different kind of prayer. It's based in awareness. It's a meditative prayer. Any kind of meditation really is about emptying the mind. It's about being in that space between the breaths. It's about releasing any sense of anything so that you can be absolutely present in, some people say, the void. Some people say in that divine essence. Whatever you want to say, the idea of shutting up long enough really does allow you to get some ideas on who you are. It really kind of changes your scope. I've never been one that thinks that meditation is all you need to do to be on a spiritual path. It's important work to just stop the chatter long enough to move into something. And it's highly practiced around the world. There's all kinds of traditions of meditating in many, many different societies and spiritual ways of being in the world. So it's an effective tool. But none of these speak to that lost mode that Braden found. And it was very clear that in the ancient texts of virtually every spiritual movement in the early times of the human experience had this same idea that was present always. And the way he describes that, he says, the lost modality found in many ancient spiritual practices has several characteristics. One is knowing that the outcome desired already exists. It already exists. That's the key. So this whole practice of spiritual mind treatment is exactly that. Is coming to a clear understanding that it already exists. And it's not that it exists in some physical form, or the invisible form somewhere else. It exists right where you are. Yeah, but I can't see it. Well, that's the least of it. It will reveal itself into physical form as soon as you're ready. As soon as you come to a place of absolutely knowing that it exists right now. The early work that Holmes did when he wrote about his doing treatment work for others, it was very clear that he would stay with it until he knew it was real. If it was a health condition for someone, until he was absolutely convinced that it was so, he would stay in his library and continue to work it until there was no question in his mind that it was so. And consistently what would happen is that he would complete his work, he'd go to bed or whatever, and find out the next day that there's been this major change in the condition of this person. Why would that be? Because he was absolutely certain that it was so. So that's the work we seek to do. Now our mind doesn't like that. Our ego doesn't mind that. And I'm not an ego basher. I see the value of ego in our human experience. We have to have an ego. It keeps us sane. But at the same time, what our egos will do is try to tell us that something isn't so because it's trying to protect us. It doesn't want us to get off on something that isn't real. It wants us to be safe. So our ego will continue to say, no, you can't do that. Oh, that's not going to work out. Oh, don't try to go do it that way because you're just going to get in trouble. Oh, well, that's a pretty limiting way to look at life. So we can't rely on our egos to get us where we want to go. We have to rely on something greater than that. And that's the place that we're going. So this idea of what we're doing is awakening through a series of steps, 5 steps, to this idea that something is real. And each one of these steps that we're going to do is absolutely relevant to the whole. It's absolutely essential. It wasn't a mistake that it fell this way. Now Holmes only had 3 steps. We'll go through those here in a little while. And one of his colleagues came up with the last 2. And as David and April and I were saying before class started, some people got all excited with that. And there are people who have 7 steps, all the way up to 12 steps. We're only doing 5, because 5 works great. And 5 aligns our thoughts in a way that allows us to get this way that we want to be in our lives. And again, it's never about fixing anything. If you go into your prayer work, into your treatment work, thinking you're trying to fix something that's broken, something that's bad or wrong, you've already failed. You can't go look at it from that place. You have to look past that. And we'll talk about how you do that. But I have a quote from a man named Roy Eugene Davis. Anybody heard of Roy Eugene? Roy Eugene is a teacher whose teacher, his own teacher, was an Indian guru. I believe he was a Maharishi. But Roy lives in Atlanta. He's got to be close to 100 now. But he's still teaching and still doing important work down there. And considered one of the New Thought teachers that has really influenced the movement. He writes this. We pray to God when we think or feel that we are separate from God. When we know God, we pray in God, understanding that prayer is a matter of consciousness, interacting only with itself until higher understanding prevails. One may pray to any concept of God. Results will be in accord with the conviction of one's faith and the degree of surrender of one's illusional sense of self. Although we may pray for improvements of mundane circumstances, the most satisfying experience is realization of God's wholeness in which nothing is lacking. I love that. So that's the essence of where we're going here. It's not ever to fix something. It's to know that everything is whole and that that divine presence is present everywhere, always. That's what does it. Thomas Trord, who Dr. Grayson over here loves to teach, is a real example of that. He was the first leader of the New Thought movement in America, although he was a British jurist from the Punjab in India, and grew up in India and had great influence from that. And he was the one that said that an infinite, which is language fails us here, because an infinite doesn't work, because if something is infinite, then it isn't an and. So knowing that there is an infinite, that infinite must exist in its entirety at every point. So you can't be a part of the divine. Infinite means that you are all of God, right where you are. What a burden. Nothing to get away with anymore if that's the case. But that brilliant idea, and we'll talk about that again when we do the second step, but I just love that. The idea that the infinite is present in its entirety at every point. That's what we're dealing with here. So the creator that created the cosmos, that created all these swirling bodies, masses of gases and rocks flying around, balls of fire, all of that, the solar systems, the galaxies, the nebulae, everything that's out there, the one that created that is the same creator as you. Wow. So, whose problem's that big? You know? So this is an idea of not though trying to go to war with something, not trying to overpower something, not trying to will something into existence, but to really live at the point of knowing that everything is whole, everything is perfect, everything is working, and see that perfection in your life in every way. That's the work. Holmes says, the power is not so much in the statements we use as it is in the consciousness our words induce. They help us to become aware of that which already exists. So everything we're working on is being aware of what already exists. We're not trying to create something new. We're simply trying, our work is to know the truth of who we are, to know the truth of the circumstances of our lives, and to live in that truth with everything that we do. That's the work. Any questions on any of this yet? Any of this confusing? There must be something clear. So how do you do that?
Your heart's so clear.
Let's go through these 5 steps real quick and give you a taste of what they're made of. What's the first one? That's correct. What do we recognize?
There is one God. One divine being.
Right. In the way that Troward explained it. Absolute at every point. Whole and complete at every point. That's the recognition. What I've discovered about this, having done this work with that idea for 30 years, is that you never get there. But you get further down the road with it. It's not a destination. So let me just tell you right off, and we'll go over this again next week. Please, please, please don't fall into the trap of saying the same statement every time you start a treatment. What I want you to learn to do as we do this is center yourself before you start your treatment. Don't just jump into it. Don't get flustered and go, I know that God is all there is. That's nothing. You haven't done anything with that. It's not the words. It's where are you in understanding this presence? Are you moving closer to a sense, to this mystical sense of the divine? It starts with recognition. We recognize there's a presence. And we give it as many lovely terms as we can. It is absolute, it's infinite, it's whole, it's perfect, it's complete, it's love. You can get all kinds of ideas, and we'll do all that next week. In the meantime, we are moving toward it, and we must continue to move toward it. If we are on a spiritual quest, then we must continue on, deepening our understanding of that right there. People go into, what are they called? places where they pray all day.
Oh,
Well,
sure.
ashrams one, that's a good one, that's a good one. What's the Catholic one called?
Nunnery.
Abbeys?
Monastery.
Monastery is the word I was looking for, thank you. They go into monasteries and spend their life doing this work to get a sense of that. Every day they work on it, they work on it for hours. They sit in prayer, they meditate, especially in the temples of the East. All day they sit and meditate, and then they go to sleep, and then they get up the next day, and they brush their teeth, and they go back and they start meditating again, because they want to get, what is that thing to understand? And you wrap words around it, and the words all fall short. So what I want you to develop is a yearning for that, a yearning to seek a greater understanding of the divine. None of us get there, but we all get closer if we focus on it. That's the nature of life. The more attention we put on anything, the more it is revealed to us. So the work of recognition is not a statement, it's a yearning, it's a direction. There's a couple of names for the next one. One starts with a U. Does anybody know what that word is? Unification. I'm not going to write that down right now. What would one be unifying with? Something else. I like that. What'd you say, Drew? Oh, you didn't say anything?
I was thinking field, but.
Yeah. So that I don't like the word unification, although it is a word that Holmes used. And what I think he was trying to say was unify your thoughts with this idea of the presence. Okay, that's nice, but I want something that really evokes something better in me. So I like the word identification. Identification. And what am I identifying? I'm identifying with that. Right? I'm identifying with this divine presence that I'm seeking to understand. Well, how do you do that? Well, we go back to the idea of Troward saying that an infant is present in its absolute wholeness at every point. Oh my God, that means that I must be God. All right? What does that mean? Well, if you start with this one, if you start with step 2, it really doesn't work that well, because then you sound nuts. Just walking around saying I'm God. But when you recognize that divine presence at whatever level you can, and then you identify with it, you're saying that's who I am. And so then I begin to speak with that authority. I begin to understand. And it's not that I am any more the divine presence than anyone else on planet Earth. No matter what their conditions may be, they are as purely and absolutely divine presence as I am. The difference is, although in many cases, is that I'm working to understand that. I'm seeking to live according to that, to have that show up in my life. That's the place that you start to get a sense of it, and it becomes useful. Otherwise, it's just chatter. So recognition, identification, and then we go into a series of possibilities for the third step of treatment. Some people like to use affirmation. Affirmation is the word that is making something firm, so it has application there. Holmes also at times used the word declaration. Declaration is a pretty good word. But I sense, this is the way it is. Because what you're doing is, you started here, and then you're identifying yourself with this, so then, therefore, you speak with authority about whatever it is that you're claiming to be so in your life. But it seems so clear to me that the greater way to do that is not to affirm it or to declare it, but to realize that it's so. So the third step is realization. You know what? I just realized. Have you ever said that? What does that mean? It was always there. Or at least it was there before, and you just realized that's the way it was.
It's like the light bulb.
Right.
Boom, it's like the light bulb, right. It's not that the light bulb wasn't there, but you turned it on. Pow. That's, to me, a much more powerful way to address this, because you're really not creating it. It's already so. So we don't try to create, we realize what's there. Example, health. Someone has some kind of a malady, and what do they treat? They don't treat that the malady goes away. They treat knowing that their body is in perfect health. And the truth is that every cell of your body has all the information it needs to be absolutely healthy. That's the natural state of the human body, is to be healthy, right? So all you're doing is realizing that that's so. And what happens? The body aligns with that. It's, oh yeah, that's it. You know, whatever it is that, and I have some wonderful examples of how that works in the body. But what I want you to know right now is that the body does listen to you. Your body does listen to you. So when you realize that something is so about your body goes, oh yeah. And all the cells align with this thing that you know. But you have to be sincere. You can't trick your body. You can't lie to your body. You can't think that you're faking it. You really have to know and realize that absolute state of health is real in every way. And at that point, your body will align. As I said, Holmes, those were his right there. Once he realized the truth, he was done. But he worked on it a long time to make sure he realized it. And then one of his students, actually, Dr. Owen, came in and said that his students up in Oakland, California, really felt like they wanted to do a little more to it, and brought him this idea of gratitude. And Holmes said, okay, that sounds good. So it just kind of became the standard. But there's good work to do around gratitude. It's not just a nicety. It's not a politeness. It's not a cultural pleasantry. It really has significant value in the process. And we'll go deeper into that when we get there. And then release became very important. And that was the idea of not holding on to it and trying to create it yourself. Because there's nothing to create. There's only to realize. And the best way to do that is to do it and let go of it. And then stay in a state of knowing itself. That's why we ended with, and so it is. That's a very powerful statement. So it is. That's clearly saying that that's the way it is. That's what's so. That's the only thing I'm accepting. I'm staying in a place of knowing that. Now, how that works at the level of release is none of your business. Because if you try to will it and say that, okay, I know that this is so, and what's going to happen first is this, and then that's going to happen, and then that's going to happen, that's not what we're doing. We're knowing the end point, the thing, the outcome, where that full realization of whatever is perfect and whole and accurate is there. And then it comes, it finds its own way. And after the break, we'll talk about how that works to put this together. Any thoughts, any questions?
Where did so it is come from?
I don't know. I don't know where and so it is came from, but it's just a norm in our movement. In fact, so much so that other groups now use it very, very consistently. So it's certainly become something. Amen is supposed to take you to the same place, but I have no idea what amen means. I know what so it is means.
Yeah.
So it is.
So be it.
Yeah, that's.
So it's the same thing. It's just not a word that we, it just sounds like to me. I mean, I grew up in a traditional, religious environment, and amen was the end of the prayer. That's all I did. So for me to know that it is so is the perfect way to end any spiritual mind treatment. And then we simply let it be. And of course, we've just barely, hardly at all scratched the surface with what I just did. The truth is this is a very deep process that takes you into a place that changes you because you're willing to go there. And that's what we'll work on for the next few weeks. So let's go ahead a little early and take our break, come back, and we'll do some exercises.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Wonderful. All
You
right.
didn't have to do any homework, you got it done already.
I've got it done
Bicycle
for 10
wheels.
years.
Things might have changed.
Well, you might want to do it again, just see how it goes. So, in our first hour together, we talked a lot about mind. So our philosophy being called Science of Mind, we got an idea, starting to get an idea of what that mind thing is, and we'll go deeper into that here in a few minutes. But I want to look at the other main word in that name, and it's science. Do you have any idea why Holmes decided to call this Science of Mind?
It's a study.
It's a study, that's true. What do you got, Mike?
I'm guessing is it because it's methodical study with...
It is, it is. The essence of it, though, is that it's provable. The idea of science is to prove...
I was just going to be right back.
Yeah, so the reason is that this is provable. And I want to take you through a process to demonstrate the provability of this teaching. Now, I know all of you have things going on in your lives that you would like something else to be happening. And we always, at the beginning of this process, people go, I have like 27 things that I want to work on in my life. This class is not designed to address 27 things. The best way to use this class, remember you're not trying to fix yourself, what we're trying to do is prove this science, prove this work, is to have one thing that you're working on in this class. Okay? So for the next 6 weeks and 1 day, your job is to prove that this is so. And here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to take you, go ahead and pass that out. I want you to just take a piece of paper out of the stack. Pick a color that is pleasant to you. You're going to write it.
Everyone has a pen?
Who needs a pen? Anybody need a pen? Okay, David's going to get a pen here.
Anyone else?
So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a process where I'm going to ask you to really look at your life and pick something to write down. But I want you to write it down in a very clear and specific way. And that way is that you're going to write it down as an affirming statement about how you'd like something to be in your life. Okay, don't write it down yet, because we're going to go through a process. But when you get to it, don't be writing a problem down. Think about what's the opposite of that thing that you would call a problem. Because I can't fix problems, I don't know anything about that. But what we can do is we can influence the conditions of our lives in a meaningful way. So why don't you go ahead and do this. Well, before we do this process, I want you to fold the paper in half and tear it along that fold. We've got 2 pieces of paper because we're going to get you to write it twice. Whatever it is you write down, having to do with one area of focus in your life, you're going to write it twice. One time, or one of the copies you're going to put in a piece of paper, in an envelope that are right now by Dr. Grace and Steve. But she's going to make sure that you all get an envelope, and you're going to write your name on the envelope, and you're going to turn those in. Okay? You're going to turn them in because I'm going to take them, and I'm going to hold them and treat them every day. Okay? For the first half of this class. When we get to week 4, I'm going to turn them over to Catherine. And she's going to hold them and treat them every day to the end of the class. Right? And then on the last night of class, they're coming back to you. Now you're making a copy for you so that you can kind of remember when you want to that you're calling that into your life. This isn't about sitting back and going, okay, prove it. No, you're working on it too. And as you develop your skills around spiritual mind treatment, you're going to craft and do work around this one issue. Yes?
Who needs a paper?
Oh, good. We've got more paper. That's going to work out so well.
Sorry.
Let's go ahead. Here, I'll start working on this while you take a paper back.
Who needs a paper? What's your color?
There you go, an envelope. See how that works?
Yeah.
The same color.
So remember, nobody's writing yet.
What?
Yes? Everybody's writing. Now nobody's writing yet. That's the thing. We're gonna go in and really let this reveal itself to each of us.
Put your name on it.
And again, when we complete the process, you're going to open your eyes and you're going to write based on where we have gone with this process. And then you're going to replicate those words on the other half of the piece of paper. put one of those pieces of paper in the envelope, put your name on it, and you're going to give it back to me. That's the plan. But what's important is that you get clear. There's a thing that we do on Sundays. If you've been there on fourth Sunday when we do the practitioners surrounding the room, and you go to them, and we say, go to that practitioner and say to that practitioner, know with me that. Because you're asking the practitioner to know this good that's in your life. It's already there, you just maybe can't see it yet, right? So there's something in your life in the areas of health, wealth, relationship, or self-expression that you would like to see something different. And that's what we're going to work on. So I want to invite you just to set your pen down. Find a cushion or a comfy place in your chair. You can, feet on the ground. Just become aware of your breathing. As you breathe in and breathe out. Allow yourself to just relax into this moment. And I want you to do a little assessment of the conditions of your life. You're not looking for problems. You're looking for something that is fulfilling, something that is desirable, something that would be well received in your life. As a condition, as a person, as whatever it is that you want to call into your conscious awareness. It may have something to do with your health, so that rather than focusing on a pain, focus on ease of movement. How nice it is, whatever it is that you are claiming into your life. Maybe it has something to do with money. Maybe it has something to do with an increase in your flow. Don't be too specific. This isn't about getting a raise. It's about having more flow in your life. Or maybe it's about a relationship. It could be a relationship with a significant partner, with a child, with an employer, with an authority figure in your life, a neighbor. Could be anybody that you can imagine having a more healthy and loving relationship. Or maybe it has something to do with your employment, your career, your avocation, some way that you express into the world. Just take a moment here to get clear about not fixing it, but about being in a state that you really like. Being in that relationship or that body state or that expression or that flow that really speaks to you in your life. And feel it. How does it feel? How does it feel to have that in your life? What does it look like? Who's involved? You're involved, but who else? Who's there? Observing what's happening or participating in it. Is there anything else you can know about it? Can you smell something? A fragrance, the smell of food. What do you hear? What does it sound like to be in this state? Is there something that you can touch? Can you hold something in your hand? Can you lean against something? Does it have a temperature that you can feel? Is it a warm embrace? Is it a vehicle? What is it? What is it that you're focused upon right now? So when you're ready, you've got a clear indication of what it is you want to write down. Just one thing. Go ahead and open your eyes and describe it on this sheet of paper. In just a few sentences. You don't have to go on and on. Just a few sentences to capture the essence of what it is. And when you've completed that writing, you write it down again. And if it changes a little bit from one piece of paper to the other, that's okay. Not to worry. Michael?
Can you recommend a beginning prompt to start? Can you recommend a beginning prompt to start? Like, I know that, I mean.
Sure, you can turn it into an absolute affirmation and say, I know that blank is so in my life. Or you can just say, I'm happy to know that so and so, such and such is there. Whatever you're called to say. Yes.
So you said several sentences? Or
Yeah, I mean, just don't go on and on and on and on and
can
on.
you just make it real succinct?
Yeah, you know what it is. That's all that's really important. You know what it is. And no one's ever going to read this piece of paper but you. If you're not here on the last night of class, we'll take the envelopes that are not returned and we'll put them in the fire. Because it's really none of our business what you're writing on that piece of paper. It's for you. So when you've sealed your envelope and written your name on the envelope, seal it up, just set it aside. And when we pass the baskets tonight to receive whatever financial gifts you would like to give to the center, we'll also put that envelope in the basket. Ready to go? Getting close?
Did you seal it?
Please.
Name on the blank.
Who here has seen the sunrise?
Which
Yeah,
time?
raise your hand if you've seen the sunrise.
Which time?
Where did it rise from?
The horizon?
Yeah, did it actually do anything?
No.
It didn't.
Oh, the sun?
Yeah, the sun didn't do anything. So it's a misnomer that the sun actually rose. The sun was, not that the sun is stationary, it's in an orbit as well. But the illusion, the perception, is that it rose in the sky. But what happened was the Earth revolved to reveal it to us again. Treatment's a lot like that. We're not asking something to happen. We're asking the natural state of something to simply be revealed to us. Because it's already there. The sun didn't go away when it set. It didn't actually do anything. It was just up there doing what it does. But the Earth revolved and it came out of our view. And then a few hours later, there it came up on the eastern horizon. But the perception that something, the sun did something is an illusion. It's actually the earth that did something. And us being somewhat, nothing is stationary, but us being at a point on the surface of the earth, that perception was revealed to us what looked like the sun going up. But the truth of life is that everything in our life is already there. We just can't see it all. We just can't see that outcome, that demonstration, until we have the consciousness to see it. That's what spiritual mind treatment is like. It's that allows us to prepare for that revelation in our lives, like a sunrise. Oh, there it is. There it is. But it was always there. The sun was always there. It was just not present in our awareness because of the revolving earth. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to stop trying to will our lives into form. Stop trying to make ourselves have the things and be the way that we want to be. We're going to move into a state of allowing life to be revealed through us, because we're ready to see it and know it and be it. That's the work of spiritual mind treatment. Does that sound like a good idea? Anybody having any questions or thoughts at this point? Now I want to give you my version of the teaching symbol of science and life. Pretty good.
You are the best circle drawer.
Woohoo! So, the circle is a misnomer in this model, because it's the idea is that all that is inside the circle. Well, if that's so, what's out here? Okay, so it's simply a way for our mind to have a representation of what spirit is. So that represents spirit in its absolute. Everything. And everything beyond everything. So the idea is that we start with this model that is a circle. And then what we recognize is that there are three aspects to this divine presence. Has a lot of different names. Some people say spirit, mind, body. Some people say cause, subjective mind, and effect. None of them are right or none of them are wrong. And it's not that there's a division of the aspects of spirit. It's just that we need a model so that we can get the concept. So this is our model. These are the elements and aspects of spirit. So I think for tonight, I want to call this cause. What does cause mean? Something initiates everything. Everything starts from something. Everything in the human experience, if you think about the progression of the human experience, everything started as an idea. A skyscraper, a bridge, a jet plane. I love the story of the Wright brothers, about two bicycle shop owners that were determined to figure out how to get some kind of a structure up into the air and to keep it there. They didn't have the money. Government was paying some fancy guy and his staff millions of dollars back at the turn of the 20th century to come up with a way to fly. And they weren't having much success. In fact, they were having a really awful time. But they were, using that model of, we'll get all this money, and then we'll be able to do it because we have all this money. But they didn't have the essence of it. They hadn't figured that out. But the Wright brothers did. So the Wright brothers actually created this model thing that flew. It was quite amazing. And the more they played with it, once they did figure out how to do it, the better they got at it. And that's how all things start, with an idea. What is it that I need to know to have this in my life? So this idea of cause is about the invisible presence of the divine. Now, this one's invisible too, so it's not the only invisible aspect of, but it is the initiator. It's the starting point. And I'm not really convinced that it's the idea but it's the thinker that initiates action. And that's cause of all things in life. Now, the opposite of that is effect. Cause and effect. Now, what's at the point of effect? Everything physical. Everything that you can see. And although Holmes didn't say it this way, I'm wondering if ideas aren't here too. Because ideas are things, thoughts are things. And this is the place of things. So I've been playing with that for years. So I always tell my classes that idea just to make it more challenging for you.
What about cause being the thing that made you come up with the idea?
Well, in essence, cause is who you are. You are cause. I am cause in my life. My life happens because I cause it to happen. So, in essence, this is God, but this is me. Everything that is me is here. Not my body, because I'm not my body. I'm a non-physical presence that uses this body like a spacesuit, so I get to play in the three-dimensional world. And I like my body. I'm happy that I got one. However, it is not me. It is not me. I'm at this cause point. My body is down here. So is everything else in my life that I can see, touch, taste, smell, or know with my senses. That's on this bottom piece. Right? Everything. Every condition, every circumstance, everything that has anything to it is here in the physical world, realm. This is non-physical. There's nothing physical about this. You can't find it. I love those people that try to weigh a body when somebody's dying and notice that 6 ounces disappear, and that must be the weight of the soul. They're stuck down here. They're all focused down here. And most people are. So let's not be too critical of them, because most people are focused down here. This is where we focus. So what is this thing in the middle?
It's the goo.
Mr. Braden has some interesting thoughts on this in his little book on prayer. So I want to share some of his words with you around this, because I think this really speaks to what this middle thing is. This is what he says. A growing number of discoveries now confirm a previously unrecognized form of energy that may explain why prayers work. The subtle energy field works differently from the kinds of energy we're typically used to measure. Because awareness of this field is so new, scientists have yet to agree on a single name for it. It's identified in research papers and books by names ranging from the quantum hologram and nature's mind to the mind of God, and often simply the field. To help visualize what such a field may look like, scientists sometimes describe it as a tightly woven web that makes up the underlying fabric of creation, literally the blanket mind of God. Whenever we look into a space between us and another person, or between anything else for that matter, and believe that the space is empty, the field is there. There is a field that is present everywhere and always. So what are the qualities of this field? According to Braden, it has 3 distinct qualities. One is that it's neutral. It doesn't do anything on its own. Another, what's that?
Is it inert?
Is it inert? In that sense it is. It does not take initiative on its own. But the second quality is it is participatory, meaning that it will participate with you. Remember, you're here, right? It will participate with you. And the third quality is that it is reflective. So it's neutral, it participates, and it is reflective, which means that whatever this is, it has no judgment on its own. It takes no action on its own. It must be initiated into action. we're just going to call it, for the purpose of tonight, the field. So, you are cause in your life. You, what do Psalms call it? You press upon this field some thought, some sense of something. And it takes it and reflects it, or puts it into physical form. Okay? So what do you do when that happens? You observe it, right? This represents expression. This represents experience. Because suddenly, you are aware of the thing. Now there's this other element in this that has to do with how we begin our journey being human, or living in a human experience, and that's that there's already effect when we get here. There's already stuff going on. All of us had parents. All of our parents did weird stuff. Yell, get mad, and freak out, and do things that we now know were probably not very well thought out. And we observe all that, right? Well, we observe it, so we, at the point of cause, see something happen in our lives, and what do we think? We think that's the way it is. So what do? We create it again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, throughout our entire lives. Thinking that it's so, because every time we think it's so and then we observe it in life, that demonstrates to us that that's the way it is. That's the reality that we create. But the thing is we're doing that. We think life's doing it, and that we're just having it happen to us. But the truth is, through our consciousness, our believing that it's so, it keeps showing up. And if someone says to you, well, that's not the way it works, you go, yeah, it is. I've seen it happen 1,000 times. How could that not be true? Well, it happened 1,000 times because you have 1,000 beliefs or thoughts that was the way it was. That was how it worked. So you just reinforced it again and again. You'll notice if you ever see this model anywhere, like on the tattoo on my arm, at the end here, it's actually got a little curve to it. The reason it's got that little curve is that that's saying, and here we go again. Now, you're not bound to this. This doesn't hold you in that place forever. What it does is it says, you can change this anytime you want. Oh, but I've experienced this 1,000 times. How can I possibly believe that it could be different? You can believe anything you want. There's nothing making you believe that model. So all you need to do is think a different thought and begin to embody that different idea to the point where you believe it's so. If you can believe it's so, you can use this same model to create an entirely different outcome to any circumstance. But you have to believe it. Well, what if you don't believe it completely? Well, I know that including my beloved, brilliant wife, if you can get to 51%, you've got there. Okay, that's fine. Now, this isn't about making it hard, but shouldn't we all shoot for really getting it? Really realizing the truth of who we are, realizing the truth of our lives, of seeing it the way we want. You just wrote something powerful on a piece of paper and put it in an envelope. Something that really calls to you. Your heart wants that. So the work now is, yeah, your heart wants it. How about your head? And it's not about wanting it. It's about realizing that it's already so. Because you can want it all day long. That doesn't mean you're going to get it. But if you realize that it's so, then what you get is that idea showing up in physical form and you observing it. That making sense? So that's the work. I mean, it sounds easy. And I know that this takes some work. That you have to really be with it. You have to accept these premises that the presence of the divine is everywhere and always. That there is something elegant about that, and that even when my life looks messy, that presence is there. I have a colleague, in fact, I got to hear him last Sunday speak in Los Angeles. Years ago, we were on a committee together, and there was some kind of a challenge that we were working on in the committee. I don't remember what the challenge was, but it was like, oh no, what are we going to do? And he just leaned back and said, and God is still all there is. Okay, I guess we're not going to get to do this. You know, kind of woke us all up. It's the truth. No matter what it looks like. Because all of this stuff that's happening here is neutral. It was created, and it exists in the world, and it only grabs meaning coming back up. We observe it, oh, that's bad. Oh, that's wonderful. We apply the value and the meaning to it. Otherwise, it's simply a neutral event. If we are indeed infinite beings of love and light, then it doesn't matter. No matter, oh, I have this terrible disease. Okay, it's a neutral event. We only say it's bad because we don't want to give up our bodies. But if we're infinite beings, how many bodies do we get? Infinite? Yeah. Yeah, there's a story that I once told on a Sunday that it dazzled me. The idea that one being lives every life. How many we got? 7 billion people on the planet right now? 7.3 something? How long would it take to live all those lives? What a great idea. That all of us right here in this room are the same being. Just living the life one at a time. Isn't that lovely? I mean, what a crazy idea. And when you start looking at life from those perceptions, anything that's going on there, you go, oh no, is meaningless. It really is nothing. But we give it value and we say, oh, that's so sad that that's happening, or I'm so angry that that happened, or whatever it is we want to apply to it. But the truth is that everything that's going on down here is absolutely neutral. So the work that we do is not down here. That's the result. That's where we end up with a condition. But all of this, one of the cool things about this, is that this is where all the facts live. Facts. Guess what? Facts change. I mean, you can say, well, that happened, and that's a fact that it happened. But is that what's happening now? It's probably different. And if that is, then facts are fluid and changing, and they're not solid. What's true is up here. And in the reality of that, of this being who we are, and this being where we dwell as spiritual beings, nothing can touch us unless we let it touch us. Nothing can hurt us unless we let it hurt us. There's no victims here. Lots of victims down here, but only in perceptions, because that's not where we are. We're here. And there's this amazing field that is neutral, that is reflective, and what's the third one? Participatory. Isn't that great? So it wants us to, this is the yes of God. This is the yes, because whatever we put into mind here is created here through the yes of God. Well, I never asked for that. Well, we're going back to it's not about words. It was never about words. It's about the essence of our life and what we bring energetically, what we bring mentally to our lives, far beyond words. We use words as tools, but they are not the all of this experience. There is an essence to it that we want to capture in doing this thing called spiritual life treatment. That's where the work is. That's where the real value is. The payoff is in moving into that sense of getting this model and how it works. When, well, this is probably in next week's stuff. Yeah, it is, so let's not do that. Any questions about this? Is this working? Yes, Drew.
The expression is the down, going from the cause of the
Here.
effect. What is the upswing?
Experience. That's your observation. Here's another thing. When you look in the absolute of this same model, because this is true for your life, it's true for all life, is that God did not create the world or the universe. The divine is creating the universe right now. If the divine stopped creating the universe, it would cease to exist. Right? But it doesn't.
But we're the divine.
Yes, we are. And our agreement that there's a physical universe sustains it. Isn't that lovely? So don't ever think that the job is finished. It's not. It's in the middle of being created right now. Yes?
It reminds me of an oscilloscope, and that's a waveform because it continues over.
It does, yeah, exactly. Because the outside circle is irrelevant.
It's a frequency, yeah.
Yeah, so it does. It just keeps that waveform going. You're absolutely right. I experience, I express. Experience, I express. And most of my expressions are simply affirming what I'm experiencing. So we get the illusion that it's happening here. It's not. Nothing is happening here. It's all happening here. We observe it here. Everything is happening here. It's completely in our consciousness, how our life unfolds. And here's what we get to see and observe and experience when it outpictures through this thing called the field or the law or subjective mind or whatever you want to call it. It's taking that and it's reflecting it back to us. It's participating with us and creating it into form. That's where it happens. Yes?
Now you've got expression on the downward slope.
Yeah.
And under experience you have observation. Is there a word that solidifies the expression? Because experience has observation, you said. Is there another one for expression?
Oh, I'm sure there are synonyms for expression. Nothing's coming to me right now.
Okay.
I express and I experience.
Okay.
It's the aha.
It's the thought. The expression is the action of thinking, of having a belief system and having that generate in our lives. Many people say, and I've heard a number of people say, that your subjective mind is what's running your life. That you're, at a conscious level, very little are you aware of actually what's driving your life. That's all happening in your subjective mind, because that's where you've compiled all these things that you believe. And that is how your life is unfolding. Now, there are times in your life where something happens and you go, I never believed that would have happened. I mean, that's lovely, but at the same time, there's something in your subjective that allows that to be. You know, I love the stories about someone that does something amazing with this. We were talking about the modes of prayer. We talked about ritual prayer. And you know that thing that we do every summer, that treatment that we do for, it's not called unexpected income anymore, what's it called? It's called increased income. Thank you, that's what it is. It's called our treatment for increased income. How I published that in Science of Mind magazine. And actually it was in Creative Thought magazine, the little one that we used to have. And that a couple in California read that and said, let's do this, because I guaranteed in 28 days that whatever they did would materialize. And I got a call one day here, and I couldn't take it because I was in a meeting, but I called them right back afterwards, and it was this couple in California that had read that thing every day, ritualistically, to create that something wonderful in their lives, and on the 28th day, they won the California lottery. Now, would that work for all of us? It would if we were in that state, if we were actually in that. I mean, they absolutely trusted me. And it worked. But that was because they believed it. That's why it worked. So, can that happen? Absolutely. We can create whatever outcome we want in our lives, but we're not. We don't actually create it. The field creates it because it's reflective and it's participatory. But it can't create it on its own. Nothing will ever happen on its own until you have the belief or the thought that allows it to initiate. Holmes called it impressing the law. It's like poking at it and going, this is what it is. This is what it is. And it takes it and it turns it into something real. How does that work? I have no clue. I don't need to know. I just know that it works. I've proven it so many times in my life. And what you got here is you got a model for how life works. It's so clear, it's so beautiful, it's so absolute. So this is where we start. And this, the purpose of spiritual mind treatment is to recognize ourselves at the point of cross. And to move from that invisible state into something physical with our lives. Because we have this wonderful thing, we already got a body. Isn't that lovely? And we have lots of other things already too. But there's conditions and circumstances and all that we would like to see shifted. Not because what we have now is wrong, but because we just like to have something else. Isn't that lovely? You know, you created everything in your life that you would call a problem. But the beauty is that you have the ability, the same ability you had to create that thing called a problem, you have the ability to create another condition that you'll enjoy much more. So why not? So we're going to play with that for the next few weeks. That's the work that we're going to do. And you're going to have amazing things happen in your life. Some of you, I guarantee, 6 weeks and 1 day from now, will receive back this envelope and you go, oh, I got that the day after we did it. Great. Somebody will say that. And somebody else will say, nothing has happened. That's not true. Something has happened. And your job is to see it and to be aware of it, because this is really important in how this works. You can create effects in your life and not see them. Yes. Morgan.
So would doubt block you from seeing?
Absolutely. I have worked with people that are so in their problem that they come back to me and say, you did a treatment but it didn't work. I said, well, tell me how it didn't work. And they'll go off on it, and they will describe how it really did work. One of my favorite ones was the person that wanted to be in a loving relationship, wanted to be a respectful relationship. And they came back the next week and said, it didn't work. And what happened? Well, my ex called. We had an argument. So we did the treatment for you to have a respectful, loving relationship, and you're still fighting with your ex? How's that ever going to happen? What happened from the treatment was this person came back and you had an opportunity to heal it. And to forgive and to let that go and to move on to something greater. But you went to war again because that's what you do. The opportunity was right there. It presented itself. That person showed up right in your life for you to take the next step, and you rejected it. So, now does that mean that this is always going to look like the hunky-dory, wonderful sweetness and light thing that we'd like to have? No. No. Sometimes it just takes us by surprise. But whatever it is, was the right thing. And our job is to decipher that and to interpret that and to see that that's a good thing. It's like my boat experience, my fishing experience. You know, my first time out, I had all reason to say, I never want to do this again. But the truth is that I had declared a good time, and I was going to have a good time. And the second time out, we had a great time. And those fish were delicious.
So, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this.
Yes.
So basically, the top tier is like our God self, like our conscious awareness that is constantly in creative mode. Mm-hmm. And then the expression of that, that's more like a noun space. But
let's say it's in expressive mode.
So the expressive is, no matter what it is that I'm thinking as it goes through this field, that's when it materializes and becomes an effect. And then as it comes back into my consciousness, that's when it's the experience.
What it is that it's here. It's your relationship. It's the condition of your body. It's the money in the bank. Those are all effects. We observe those things. And we have a choice to say, that's what I want, or that's what I don't want. We have a choice right there to accept that that's what we want. But this is all illusion. Now, Holmes, in his work, he came to a point and said, don't be saying things are illusion. Don't be saying that pain is an illusion, because that doesn't help anybody. But the truth is that this is all in this three-dimensional thing that is somehow manipulated. This is not manipulated. This is the same always. This thing changes all the time because there is an influence on it all the time, all the time, all the time. So all we have to do is change our perception of it, realize that the thing that we really wanted was there all the time. It's here. It's in the field. This field of potentiality. It's always there. But how do we drop it down into here so we can see it? That's our work. And it is only through a clear mind. You cannot force this. You cannot insist on it. You cannot will it into existence. Willing things, trying to will things in existence have very little impact, very little ability. You have to step aside and let the law, let that field do its work. Yes?
I keep feeling just the malleable clay.
Yeah. Yeah, every bit of this.
That first coming down the arm that molds that clay. Is that?
Sure, and it doesn't feel like it when you break your leg on it.
No.
You know, but your leg is malleable too. It'll heal. You know, that's how it works. It all fits together. And every experience is a valid spiritual experience. There's nothing wrong happening here. Nothing wrong. So work on yourself this week to realize that all the things that you thought were wrong in your life are not wrong. You're simply the conditions that showed up. And by not being attached to them, not going to war with them, now you have the ability to create something different. But if you're highly attached to the problem, you won't get a different result. We will continue this conversation next week. I'm really enjoying this. This is wonderful. So what I'm going to do is ask you to take out whatever it is that you would like to give to the center tonight. My ego would like you to give a lot. And if you didn't bring any cash or checks and you would like to make a gift to the center, there's a donation station right around the corner behind that clock that would gladly allow you to swipe your credit card.
An open mind.
So whatever it is you're going to give, please hold it in your hand. And why don't you hold that envelope in your hand too? I'm going to bless all of that. And know with me that that presence and power that is the one is right here. It is complete and perfect in every way. It always has been and it always will be. And its presence here is as great and powerful as it is anywhere in the entire cosmos and probably far beyond. It is the presence of the divine. And it dwells in its perfection at the point of me and each one in this room. And I delight in this knowing, and I speak with the authority of that divine presence as I know the truth for each one here that we are deeper, we are clearer, we are more attuned to our divine nature tonight because we have had these conversations, that we have done our good work, and that as we acknowledge that with our gifts tonight, that God shows up in a great way as us, flowing through us into this center. In a way to acknowledge and bless and codify this journey, this magical, mystical journey that we are on. So I allow these gifts to be blessed. I allow each of the givers to be blessed, knowing that all is well, because all is still God. That's the truth. I let it be. And so it is. Something convenient about having your check already made up, but there's something wonderful about saying, I got something, I'll write the check. So thank you, Jane. In fact, thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
So these gifts I hold in loving embrace, knowing that a little bit of all of us shows up here in this good thing that we do. I know that these gifts do great value to paying the bills and supporting the prosperity of this center, and that in essence of it, an element of it stays here always. Touching everybody who comes into this room, touching every life in a great and glorious way. I know we are all blessed by this that we do. So we take what we got tonight and we bring it into our lives full and complete, knowing that God is the truth of our lives. Because that's who we are, and we let it be. And so it is.
And so it is.
Read through chapter 1. We'll do this again next week. Hey.